Hello everyone, this is Peggy back with another video for you all. In this video, I will be going through the opposing perspective paper rubric. Since this assignment has several layers or components to it, I thought it might be helpful for you to have me walk through the assignment rubric to get a better understanding. In preparation for this assignment, you should think about your views, beliefs, and values related to education. Identify a particular issue or dilemma in education for which you have a definite side. For example, you might have a definite opinion on the use of standardized tests. So let's say that your belief is that standardized tests should not be used to evaluate students, teachers, etc. For this paper though, you are tasked with arguing an opposing side, or in this case, in support of standardized tests. So yes, this means you will need to argue against your beliefs. This will be a challenging exercise because it requires that you defend, justify, and support a side that you do not believe in. Hence the name of the assignment, the opposing perspective paper. Your paper should be about 3 to 5 pages in length, where you persuasively take on this other perspective. These main components here in the rubric relate to these 3 to 5 pages. You will also need to include at the end of the paper a separate page or more reflecting on your process to write this paper, as well as how it made you feel and how it was related to its corresponding module on prejudice reduction. Let's look at the persuasive component of this assignment, the 3 to 5 page paper. In this rubric, you can see that we've broken down the evaluation of this paper into 6 areas, each of which is worth up to 5 points. The first area relates to taking this opposing perspective. The standard here reads that you should clearly describe the perspective taken and why the issue being discussed is important. This is really the introduction to your paper. Tell the reader what the issue is and what side you are taking. To continue with our standardized test example, this is the section where you would say that you are taking the side that supports standardized testing, knowing that this is not what you actually believe. The next component of this rubric relates to support. In this section, you should demonstrate that you actually support standardized tests and give clear and accurate reasons for doing so. I highly recommend doing research on your topic/issue and read or listen to arguments from the other side. For example, what do people say in support of standardized tests? Why do people support them? For what reasons? Learning about such arguments will give you insight into the other side of potential points to make in your paper. I'll talk more about using this research later. So in your paper, you have identified your argument, given support, and made your perspective on how standardized tests should be used. What now? The most compelling persuasive arguments and debates actually engage with questions or reasons against their argument. By doing this, you show how your argument can withstand criticism, and you will do the same thing in this assignment. In other words, you will need to discuss the reasons against your new opposing perspective and still argue how your perspective is still relevant and important. Let's use our standardized test issue as an example. Remember, in the paper you are arguing in support of the tests. In this section, you will need to engage or respond to critiques against standardized tests and still argue why the tests are important. This becomes the most complex and challenging aspect of this assignment because it requires that you essentially argue against yourself. Sounds tricky, right? Well, it is. However, doing this, that is, engaging in this debate, is very important. It will really demonstrate your understanding of this other side of the issue and challenge you to get outside of your comfort zone by interrogating your own beliefs. The last three sections of the rubric related to the 3 to 5 page persuasive paper have to do with writing style and conventions. First is the use of evidence. Here is where you bring into the paper that research you did earlier. So throughout the paper supporting standardized tests, you should bring in articles, books, opinion blogs, or news articles, and or your own experiences to strengthen your support. You will notice that the standard for this component asks you to use a variety of evidence or resources, and that you support most, if not all, of the statements you make. For example, if you say something like, "Most administrators agree that standardized tests are useful," cite where you got the impression or information. Was it from a personal communication, a book, a blog? You can use any type of evidence. You just make sure you cite where and when you use it. The next component to think about is voice and tone. This means that you actually take on the voice of that opposing side that supports standardized tests. Your writing should demonstrate that you care about this argument even though it is not one you believe. Be careful not to let your own beliefs on this issue sneak into the paper and your writing. Without the title or the reflection at the end, an outside person should be able to read the paper and be convinced you actually support standardized testing. Finally, conventions. This means that your paper has an organizational structure or flows. Headings work well for some writers and others do not need them. Use whatever will make the paper flow from one point to the next. Also, check your spelling and grammar, write in complete sentences, and use language or words that really convey the feelings of someone supporting this issue. Now, these last two sections have to do with the reflection. Remember that you have to write the 3 to 5 page persuasive paper and at least one additional separate page that is your reflection. In that reflection, you should address these two areas. First is the writing process. Tell the reader how you approached the topic, how you picked your issue, how did you find resources, etc. Also tell the reader how it felt to do this assignment. Additionally, your reflection should address how this assignment, that is, the idea and or the practice of it, relates to your professional/teaching practice, as well as how it relates to the module issue of prejudice reduction. Remember, your reflection should be at least one page, but you may need more. Finally, from the 40 points possible from this rubric, we will calculate how many of the 20 points possible you get toward your final grade. I will end by saying that this is a challenging assignment, but many have found it to be a good and constructive challenge. Keep getting outside of your comfort zone and have an open mind. This concludes the video on the opposing perspective paper rubric. If you have any further questions about this assignment, please post them to the class-wide discussion board.